in India. That is how much the new Nano, unveiled by India's Tata Motors yesterday, will cost. It is a four-seater with a 625cc engine. Analysts say the Nano could change the face of the Indian auto market and perhaps other markets as well. But while it is affordable, environmentalists are worried that having more cars on the road will only add to already high pollution levels. Vivek is Director of Automotive at Frost & Sullivan, the consultancy. Joins me right here on SEC. Vivek, good to see you. Just how significant is the Nano?
I think it's very, very significant. It has two impacts, one on Indian automotive industry and the other one is on global automotive industry. In the Indian automotive industry, it will basically expand the market. They have entered at a price point which nobody can imagine.
So it's basically the four-wheel equivalent of the sub $1,000 PC. Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting stuff. What about these environmental worries, though? I mean, affordability, of course, opens it up to a lot more people. And yes, it is tiny. It's small. It runs on an engine the size of a motorcycle engine, basically. But you know, more affordable, easier to buy means there could potentially be more of them on the road.
That's right. But I think what Tatas have done right is they have got the Euro norms right. They have adhering to Euro 2 norms or Bharat 4 norms, which is fairly good. So from environmentalist perspective, it is just another car on the road. And they should just be worried about numbers and should not really say that this is a more polluting car because it adheres to the norms that are there in the market.
Okay, here's a Euro 2, but I mean, we're up at what, Euro 4 or 5 right now, aren't we?
That's right. But that, you have to look at markets like India a little differently.
Okay.
Markets like India are developing markets. Euro 4, Euro 5 norms are in developed markets.
Okay.
Markets like Vietnam are still at Euro 1. Markets like Malaysia are still between Euro 1 and Euro 2. So I think Euro 2 is fairly a decent achievement as far as this kind of a car at this price is concerned.
All right, which sort of raises the question, what is the export potential of something like the Nano? Of course, I mean, huge domestic market. They need to satisfy demand there as well, or at least get positioning there. But, I mean, you know, as companies like GM is learning, if you really want to make money, you know, forget these big gas guzzler SUVs. It's these tiny cars which you sell in, you know, poor developed or developing countries. That's where the good money or new money is.
Yeah, I think that's a paradigm shift that this car has brought in, and that was what I was referring to as international impact.
Yeah.
Nobody could imagine a car which would be as low as 2,500. Now, others may not be able to match it, but they will definitely bring out cars which are, say, sub $5,000 US, that kind of a price point. From export potential perspective, I don't foresee these cars entering developed markets as much, but they would do very well in developing, or I would say still developing markets.
Right.
That is like Vietnam.
Do you think it would do better in Latin America, Eastern Europe?
It's Africas and and Vietnams and even Southeast Asia, some poorer countries. This car would do well.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Why do you think China hasn't come out with something like this? I mean, they make cheap and fairly good cars, but I mean, inputs are pretty much the same for you know, any set of wheels on the road, and both India and China, in terms of labor cost, manufacturing, etc., are still very competitive.
Right. I think China automotive industry works on a completely different way of working. Basically, the car there, because of IPR issues, every car manufacturer doesn't is not required to design the car right from scratch. They can just take a car, they can actually
copy it. Yeah, which the Chinese have been doing.
And therefore what happens is the investment that goes into the design is very, very less. And therefore...
What about the Nano, though? I mean, was that a from-scratch car?
Completely from scratch.
Interesting.
From concept, from scratch, this car has come up.
How do they get around the Nano name? I mean, isn't Apple going to start coming after them?
I think you do find same names being used in different industries, and I don't see that.
What I find interesting about this car is not so much the size or the price or the fact that it runs on a motorcycle engine, because we've had you know, a lot of cars like that before, especially the baby cars in Japan. But more the fact that they'll hit dealers, they'll arrive at dealers in CKD form, completely knocked down. This is going to be like the equivalent of, this is like an IKEA car, right?
Yeah. I think that I like that term.
Yeah.
But I think they have to. What has happened is they actually committed to 1 lakh as as known by Indians as a price, and now they have to work around to achieve that price. And they have to look at different ways of distributing this car. And the distributor in this particular case may not be the distributor as we know it, but it would be a semi-assembler. And I'm sure if Tata is serious about the car, they will need to put this in perspective.
Okay, Vivek, real quickly, let's swing up to the other end of the market, from the tiny Nano up to, of course, the recently acquired luxury brands, Jaguar, also to a lesser extent a Land Rover. There, what does Tata intend to do with these, and what is the risk of the potential that these are very strong, old, established brands now under Tata?
I think these are two completely different issues. And Tata is pursuing a strategy of doing different things in India, doing different things outside India. And in India, they are looking at mass market. Outside India, they are looking at playing by the rules of international market. And they have embarked very clearly on internationalization path. So I don't see a conflict because they would not tamper with Jaguar or Land Rover branding. They would not tamper with the customer interface. They would just take them as brands of hundreds of brands they have in their stable, and they will manage it independently of this Nano brand. I don't see that as a conflict at all.
All right, Vivek, we'll have to leave it there, just out of time. Great to talk to you, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you for the time. Vivek Vaidya there, Director Automotive at the consultants Frost & Sullivan. Next up on Squawk, gold hitting a record high earlier on in Asia. It's calmed down a bit. Is $900, though, inevitable? An ounce will get